Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we are going to look at how we can test our Python code. So we're going to look at writing something called unit tests. And this is going to be two parts. In this part we're going to write some simple tests. We're going to write some code and we're going to write some unit tests for our code. And in the second part we're going to make sure we're going to actually implement this on GitHub. So GitHub is going to run our tests and validate our code when we push it. So we're going to use their sort of hook that they have on their website. So, but let's start with this video and let's write some unit tests for Python. So I'm going to show you how you can test your Python code. So first I'm going to create a new directory. I'm going to call this let's call it awesome code or something, I don't know. Because our code is tested, so it's going to be awesome, you know? So, it's completely empty. But the first thing I want to do here is to create a virtual env so that I can install some dependencies. So I'm going to do virtual env -p user bin python, and we're going to use Python 3.7. And we're going to do /venv to create our virtual env. So virtual env -p /usr /bin/python 3.7m /venv. Now, if you don't have this exact binary here in the bin folder, maybe you have some other Python version that you can use. But I'm going to use 3.7m. Okay. And I'm going to put a link in the description on how to install virtual env if you don't have it. It should come if you should have it if you install the Python developer tools and stuff like that. I think you can even do, let me see here. I think you can do app install Python virtual env if you are using Ubuntu or Debian or any other distribution of Linux that is having the apt package manager. Now obviously I already have it, so I won't install it, but yeah, that package exists there. Anyway, so let's run this command that I was supposed to be running and create our virtual env. Oh, I don't actually have virtual env. Oh well. So I am going to install it. And then I'm going to create my virtual env. And I'm going to source it. Source ./ven bin activate. Cool. Now, if you don't want to, you don't need this virtual env actually. You can just use the Python package manager without the virtual env, but I don't want to install packages globally. I want to install them locally in this project. So. But now we can do pip install pytest, because we're going to need pytest for this, okay? So I'm going to install pytest. It's a library for writing unit tests in Python. Okay. Now I'm actually going to create a module here, or yeah. Let's create a Python module here called, let's call it awesome code. And we're going to touch awesome code init.py __init__.py so that Python knows that this is a module. And now we're going to create another folder called tests. And now we're going to open up our editor. I'm going to use Vim. Okay. So in our awesome code directory here, in our awesome code module, obviously we're going to have to write some awesome code that we're going to test. So let's create a file called utils or something. And let's just imagine that this is a real world project, you know? So let's define some methods here. Let's say we're going to have a method that adds two numbers. So let's make a method called add, and we're going to add x with y. And this will simply return x plus y. And we're keeping things simple here, you know, because I'm going to show you how to test your Python code, and we're going to keep it simple. Just so that you get the basic concepts of writing unit tests. Now PyTest provides you a lot of more utilities that I'm going to show you in this video, but maybe that will be for another video. I'm going to keep it really simple now, okay? Okay, so we have an add method. Cool. Now let's start with this method, and only this method, just to keep it simple. So now we want to test that this method does what we want it to do, okay? And we expect it to return x plus y. So let's go into our tests folder, and we're going to create a file for testing this function. So I'm going to create a file inside our test folder called test underscore. Now it's really important that the file starts with test underscore, because PyTest is going to look for that file beginning with test underscore, okay? So we're going to call our file, let's call it test utils, okay? So this unit test file here is going to test this Python module here, the utils one. Okay, so now what we want to do is that we're going to do from awesomecode.utils import add. Obviously we need to import the function that we're going to test. And now we're going to define a function here called test add. And it's also important that this function starts with test underscore, because PyTest is going to look for this function. Okay, so let's define a function called test add, and let's test some things here. Let's say we have the number 10, x is 10, and actually let's just do this. Now when writing unit tests, there is this statement that you should be aware of, and it's called assert. And the assert statement is basically saying that we expect something to be true. Okay, so in this case I expect add 10 with 10 to be 20. Okay, because 10 plus 10 is 20. I'm going to save this file. Now to run this is actually pretty much all we need to get started. So now you just go into your terminal and stand at the root of your project and do PyTest. And it's not going to be able to import awesome code, obviously. So what you need to do for that to work, you have to, we're going to create a setup.py file here actually. Okay, and and don't worry, I'm gonna put the source code of this on GitHub so that you can copy paste it. But we're gonna create a setup file so that we can install our awesome code module as a Python package basically. So let's just call it awesome code version 1.0.0 or something, and it requires PyTest, and we're not gonna have any console scripts. No. Okay. So now go into your terminal again and do python setup.py, and let's just type develop. So python setup.py develop. Okay, now if we run PyTest, it runs our test. So we can see that our test function here passed. It asserted true. Let's say we change this number to 13 or something. Now, if we run PyTest, it's going to fail. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, maybe we want to test this function with multiple parameters. We want to test it multiple times so that we know for sure that this function is behaving exactly like we want it to do. Now we could do this by, just doing this and, entering different numbers manually, but there's a cool feature that PyTest provides that we can use for this. So let's do import PyTest. Okay. And then above our test, we can do pytest.mark.parameterize. I always forget how to spell that. We'll see if I did it correct. And then what you can do is say x, y, and then you can do an array. And then we can have a list of arguments here. So we're going to do 10, 10. Let's do result 20, and then we can do x, y, result, and then we can do x, y. So basically what we're doing here is telling PyTest to run this function with these arguments. And we're calling them x, y, and result. And then we can add those as parameters to or arguments to the function, and then we can access those. Let's just see if I spelled this correctly. Did you mean parameterize? Yeah. So I did spell it wrong. So let's put the correct one here. Now we're going to run the test, and it passed. So now we can actually add more calls here. So let's add 5, 5. I expect it to be 10. Let's add 6, 6. I expect it to be 12, and so on. Now we run, and 3 tests passed. So it actually called this function 3 times because we have 3 sets of arguments for this function. So that's pretty cool. So let's create another. Let's test some more stuff. Let's do define. Let's call this. Let's call it remove spaces or something. And this is going to take in a string. So let's just put data and return data.replace white space with empty space. So this function will remove all white space from a string, and it's going to replace it with nothing. So let's write a test for this. So let's do def test remove spaces. Now you don't have to name the tests the same as the function that you're testing. It's just a convenience, or it makes things more clear if you do that. Okay, so we need to import the function, of course. So we're going to import remove spaces. And let's test it. So we're going to do assert remove spaces John Doe is equal to John Doe. Run our test, and 4 tests passed. So this one passed as well. Let's test it with some more data. So we're going to do this parameterize thing here as well. So we're going to do data result. So now we only have 2 arguments that we're going to use. So we're going to do John Doe becomes John Doe I expect John Doe to become John Doe without a space. Let's try it with some more spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Doe should also become John Doe. And a string with just a space should become an empty string. And then we're going to add the arguments here. So data result. Data result. And let's run PyTest. And 6 tests passed. So this one is calling the remove spaces function with these sets of arguments. So it's going to call it 3 times. And this one is also being called 3 times. And that's why we have 6 tests. So that's pretty cool. And now the benefits that you get from this is, let's say you're in a big project and a lot of people are working in it, and someone decides to, for some reason, modify this function add here. They think it's going to be a good way to. They think it's a good idea to add a 1 to it or something. You know, whatever. So now, when they run the tests, they're going to see that, oh, it fails. So they broke something. So this is a way for the developers in the project to know that they have messed something up and that the code is no longer behaving as expected. Okay, because the tests are actually like describing how the program should behave or how parts of the program should behave. It's very common actually to write the tests before you actually start implementing the functions. And this is called test-driven development, where you actually write the tests first. It's pretty common to do that. Okay, but we don't want our code to be broken, so I'm going to remove that. Okay. Let's see here. Is there anything more we could do here? Let's add another module here that we can test. Let's call it. Let's call this. Validate or something. And we're going to create a function called def validate email. And we're going to be really lazy here, and we're just going to say that return true if at in email, else false. Really good email validation, right? So let's write a test file for this as well. So we're going to call this test validate.py, and we're going to import it. So from awesomecode.validate import validate email, and we're going to create a function called def test validate email. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this one again. I'm too lazy to type it out. Okay, so let's say we have some email and is okay. So let's have john.doe at somecompany.com, and I think this is a good email. True, John. Let's just put some gibberish here, and this is not a good email. False. Let's do an empty string. False. Okay. Email is okay. Assert validate email is equal to is okay. So we're going to call the validate email function with, first we're going to call it with this set of arguments, johndoe at somecompany.com, and it's a valid email because it has an @ sign in it. then it's going to call the function with these arguments, and this is obviously not a valid email, and this is not a valid email. So let's go ahead and run PyTest again. PyTest is not defined. Oh, I forgot to import PyTest here. Cool, 9 tests passed. And as you can see, it automatically sensed that both of these files were test files because it started with the test underscore. So it ran all the functions in those files. So I think this is all for this video. In the next part, we're gonna make it so that GitHub will automatically run our tests when we commit something to the repository. Now this is pretty good because then you can have you can lock down your master branch in your repository so that no one can push to it. That you can only make pull requests to it, and then you can set up a rule that says that you cannot merge into master unless all the tests are passing. I recently set this up for my programming language that I've made on that exists on GitHub. I recently locked the master branch so you can no longer push directly to it, and you have to make pull requests, and the requirement is that all the tests are passing, otherwise you cannot merge. So this is really good, and it and by doing this you can make sure that your code is always working in the intended way. So if you didn't follow along, as I said, I'm going to have the source code in the description of this video. I'm going to put it on GitHub. And yeah, if you're not already a subscriber, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell button if you don't want to miss any of my uploads. And I'll hope you will have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.